Assalamu alaikum fam, hope you're doing well. So, I want to talk to you today about veganism. And I was vegan for like 2 years. I think it's a fast way to lose weight. But when I was around the vegan philosophy, some of the most hardcore vegans you can imagine, you begin to see how a bit crazy they are and ungrateful they are to what Allah has given us in terms of sustenance and His bounty. They would even say you cannot consume honey because it's made from a bee without their consent. As you know, bee honey has immense amounts of health benefits, and lots of local farmers love to sell you their honey. So I began to talk to more and more vegans, and more of them would say they would prefer cows go extinct than be raised on a humane ranch for human consumption. And they contend there is no form of humane slaughter. Now, I really want to break this down because I think it's highly important that people understand the lunacy of allowing lab coats to create fake food that is highly processed and cannot be made without machinery. I want you to see that handing over the absolute control of your food supply to factories is quite insane. And that vegans have had their emotions manipulated because factory farming exists and because people began to be too lazy to raise their own livestock, and they rejected the farm homestead life for the cities, and that created factory farming because people wanted cheap meat without actually having the labor involved. And then they were outsourcing jobs and then importing through globalization cheap beef, and transnational corporations began paying the science community to create injection hormones and other things to make their livestock grow faster because they were impatient. And they did not focus on sustainability, the health of the animal, nor the health of the consumers, but rather their expediency and ag-gag laws where you're not allowed to film inside what they do to the animals. So essentially what they did was create really horrible environments for the animals, and then that led to people justifiably being upset. But then the demonization of all meat consumption came into play, and things started getting extremely out of hand. I saw Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela Peterson, have a discussion with a woman who was a woke vegan and said eating meat is actually racist. And she went into a very insane tirade, and then you can kind of see full circle the lunacy that the vegan movement can give someone, where they start to feel that the food they can eat is superior to you as a human being, and that they are more moral for not eating animals and you are less moral and more evil because you consume animals. Now, this type of mindset is something that I experienced when I first became part of the vegan movement, and my friends really made me realize, like, you're not, this is not good what you're doing, right? Especially my friends who were chefs. And I realized I was wrong, and I was embarrassed, and then I later became a butcher, and I really understood the value of meat, and I got to taste beef from a very well-raised cow with a very good bloodline, like just excellent farming, and the flavor was like something I never tasted before. And then I got to see, what does bruised meat look like, and I really started investigating, sustainable ranching and how our ancestors did it and how that's the normal way, but they stopped doing that because of corporations and people's unwillingness to spend money on food and instead spend more money on an iPhone. through our personal financial decisions, we shape the market. And because humans have been taught to spend more money on fashion than on quality meat, this has led to the decay within the meat industry, which has led to ridiculous pornographic companies like PETA to slowly starve us. And what I mean by that is they will viciously attack sustainable ranching and demonize ranchers and all those who consume meat. Now, this is highly dangerous because this will crush the economy. If you realize how many companies revolve around a cow, the leather industry, the fur industry make very warm socks, the dog bones even, every part of the cow can get used, except for the brain. It's disgusting. Or the eyeballs. But the tongue, you make delicious tongue tacos. I've cooked that before. I love eating cow heart. Beef liver is absolutely delicious. Menudo, the stomach, is made with excellent soups. It's so great. Even the testicles of the bulls are absolutely delicious, cooked in Spain. So what I'm trying to say is that much of the animal is used, and pretending like oat milk doesn't use water and that the preservatives that they have to put in it to make it sit on the shelf is better than raw milk is absurd. And the amount of sugar that's in almond milk and some of these soy products is not exactly healthy. I think you can have a balance. But Allah Azza has given us raw milk. He's given us the ability to make butter from that, yogurt, cottage cheese. I mean, just think how many varieties of cow cheese exist, and sheep's milk, and goat's milk, and how that is a mercy from Allah Azza, and that these vegan, secular, feminist atheists have decided that they want to take away Allah's gift to us and to make us entirely dependent upon factories producing oat milk, hemp milk, all the stuff that they want to make, which is fine in small amounts. But hemp milk is not at all on the same level as organic, raw, pasture-raised milk. It's not the same. Absolutely not the same. And you'll notice more and more now, they really understand that they have encouraged people to not be farmers. They've made people look down upon farming, on homesteads, on being a parent, where women used to have, a chicken coop, ducks. You could get your own food. If you needed a scarf, hunt a hawk, a fox, skin it, let the meat go to your guard dog or your cat or some crows, and then, tan it and be warm. Right? They demonized every natural aspect of reality. And this is causing this sort of artificial dependency upon human creation in terms of manufacturing. And plastics are a problem. Like the vegans don't like California having places that sell fur. Now, here's the thing. Animal dies, the fur is right there. Right? A byproduct. A fur pelt can keep you warmer than many fake things in Macy's or Nordstrom. And many people buy cheap-made clothes from slave labor, and then those go into the ocean and they're choking whales, and it's polluting the ocean because those plastic fibers don't biodegrade. So the ironic part is that the vegans promote these artificial fabrics that don't biodegrade over a natural pelt that occurs naturally on the animal and that humans have used since forever, right? The most funniest part is when vegans infantilize the Native American tribes in America. They try to say, oh, they were really in touch with the environment, they were so like these hippies. Meanwhile, the tribes were covered in beads made from bones, feathers from eagles and ravens and hawks and falcons and you name it, and they're literally wearing leather. How do you think they got that leather? Through hunting and eating meat. They were not these, grass-eating weaklings. Their men rode on horses and would put a tomahawk in you. And the chief's hat is literally all eagle feathers. And their chest beads are bones. So the giant hypocrisy and the changing of history that the vegans have done is quite strange. Now, the funniest part, too, is that those evolution crowds say that our brains grew bigger because we started eating meat. And, interesting, some historians, as I read in the book, pointed out that one of the unique aspects of the Mongols was they ate dried meat, yogurt, meat from their horses, had milk from them, they would make all kinds of products, and that they were extremely strong, and that they would cover in natural fur, and they were really fortified, kind of muscular men. And when they took over the Jurkid tribes, when they went into China and that area, some of them were more into eating vegetables, and they just didn't have the physical manpower to overcome the people who ate meat. The really other interesting part, too, is that we must be honest and understand that the feminists of the liberal agenda who are vegans, we know that food is the building block of us. And we know men benefit from meat. This cannot be denied no matter how any corrupt doctor tries to switch it. Because doctors now have become more politically active, and some scientists are betraying their field. But there still are some noble people who understand that the pure, high-quality meat that our ancestors ate and that we still have today for a price is superior than firm tofu. Is superior than any of those mock meats, which are hard to digest, cause constipation, and are entirely artificial. This really shows that men will be definitely weaker. If you notice, in the poorer communities, they put so many processed foods into those areas, and the people got fat and sick, and the food additives caused so many gastrointestinal issues, colon issues, because they were not eating real food. If you don't feed meat to your dog and you only feed it kibble, your dog develops tumors, they become unhealthy. But if you actually feed meat, eggs, chicken, fish, really good things to your dog, like what a wolf would eat, you'll see a huge difference in your dog's disposition, right? Same with your cat. You need to feed your cat tuna fish and let it hunt some mice and eat some birds. Like, don't starve it by feeding it these weird, dry factory kibble foods. We are very similar in that affair. Even chickens will eat a mouse. They eat bugs. They eat all kinds of stuff. Not just corn. So my point is that veganism will bring in a real powerful system of control. Because if you start closing down more and more ranches, and you only have mega corporations who use genetically modified foods, heavy pesticides, and have horrible labor practices, and they can export their stuff globally and undermine local communities, and they undercut pricing, right? And they push out the little guy. This creates a very imbalanced order. And vegans really rely on the infrastructure and the electric grid. Their entire diet depends upon a factory, upon production in an artificial environment, whereas we normal people who enjoy hunting, enjoy fishing, gardening, ranching, understand that there is an honor in being a steward of the land, and that you can raise animals in the best way possible and appreciate the sacrifice that they make to nourish us, and that it's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A big bowl of tofu is not going to satisfy you as much as a fat 25 pound turkey that you break down. You keep all those feathers, you can make a feather pillow, be nice and warm. Use the bones to create a nice soup, right? That meat can feed, a family of 5. How many soy plants does it take to create some tofu? And you may be saying, well, yeah, there's fruits and there's nuts. Eating like a hamster, like a rabbit, it's okay if you want to live in the city and do it voluntarily. But some of these vegan activists seek to shut down your ability to even have a chicken coop, to harvest a goat yourself. They actually want to raid farms in terms of animal rescue. They've moved beyond holding people accountable for poor treatment to actively suppressing your ability to be self-reliant. They really believe they have the moral high ground to steal away your ability to raise a calf, to harvest it, and to utilize all its components. They want to take that away. And you may be thinking, my friend is a vegan, they don't want this, but you have to pay attention to where the nucleuses are of ideas, but where the whole web movement is pushing towards. They would prefer that your children eat mealworms, crushed grasshoppers. They have a lot of campaigns now for you to literally eat bugs to save the planet, instead of learning how to raise goats, geese, and being self-reliant on your land. So, in some of these very posh, fancy areas where all these liberals are, if you say, I want to have a chicken coop, they'll create zoning laws to where you can't. And if you shot a coyote on your property, they'll be like, oh, you can't do that. And if they see you skinning it because you're going to have it to be warm or whatever you want, they're going to say you're doing animal cruelty. So they are inverting the natural order that has existed on this earth because they've been inside a university classroom for too long, and they are in fact very weak in their emotional state. They're hyper emotional, and they think that agriculture means 0 deaths. So when you have, they're wrong, you have a carrot field, lots of the rodent family creatures come to try to eat that. Farmers have to get rid of those animals. Deer come, moose come. A lot of animals want to eat what you got. To keep those veggies intact, insects must die and animals must die in order to maintain that carrot plot. So already vegans are wrong by saying that nothing dies so they could get their carrots. Even if those carrots are loaded onto a truck, they are transported on a highway where tons of deer die. That carrot plot is taking space in a forest where trees could have been for birds, for turkeys, for squirrels, chipmunks, you name it. Where a bear could have lived, it's now a carrot plot. So whatever you do, the landscape has changed to prevent animals and to sustain what has grown so it can be sold on the shelves. Vegans fear death, and they think that animals should not die and that they should just live a very kind of a life that doesn't involve humans. But what they're really wrong about is that people will, they'll still find ways to eat it. And then what happens then? Are vegans going to put people in jail for eating meat? I saw a school, the LBC reported it, in the UK. I forgot what part of England, but a school banned meat. If you brought meat in your school lunchbox, they wouldn't allow it. Podcast of the Lotus Eaters just did a story on it that was released either today or yesterday, but I watched it today. And they do not serve meat in their cafeteria. So this is the vegan, liberal, atheists, secularists, leftists, changing what you are allowed to eat. Notice how they want full control over your life. They want to force medical procedures into your body, and they want to force you into eating things you don't want to eat. And they're taking away the rights over your body, and now they're taking away the rights of you to consume meat that Allah has given us on this earth. Okay? People have to really understand this really sick, inverted mindset that is masked in progressive climate issues, right? If they really wanted more people to eat, they would consider, here, grow some vegetables. How do you have a chicken coop? How many eggs you get? How many chickens can be reproduced so quickly? Rabbits, they reproduce real quickly. Turkeys, if you have land, right? But when they're forcing you into these tiny cities, telling you to go into debt, telling you to get abortions, to have intimacy with everyone, not to get married, to legalize all drugs, right? This is so much inversion of the natural harmonic order that Allah has given us. So they rather legalize, tax, and regulate all drugs so that you can smoke meth, you can use heroin, but then saying you shouldn't eat meat. What's more healthier for you, meth or organic grass-fed, pasture-raised, humane certified, non-GMO beef? See, they try to pretend they're the health connoisseurs. They're the health authority, that they have a right to tell you what you can eat and what you can't eat. And piece by piece, they're incrementally taking control of your food supply. And as Rome learned, when they depended upon Egypt at a certain time period in ancient Rome for their import of grain, and Egypt cut it off, there were bread riots because people needed to eat, and that was just over flour, right? So, I'd ask you, is it smart to discourage local tiny farms in favor of transnational corporations and to allow schools to ban meat and to allow your children to be forced to eat fake food created by lab coats? This is not right, and it's not good, and it's a very, very sinister way to keep humans in control. You control the food, you have been given too much power. And the farmers in India understood this when Monsanto patented seeds, because they couldn't regrow without paying them for a special genetically modified seed. Allah has given us naturally how many tomato seeds in one tomato, how many lemon seeds in one lemon, how many seeds in an orange, in a watermelon, in a pumpkin, in a squash. Allah has given us many ways to have abundancy. But who is it that has placed restrictions upon this? And who is it that seeks to not allow us to be truly self-reliant and dependent upon them? Because if you're relying upon a certain system, they have authority over you, they can control you, because you won't break free, because then you'll starve. Who is it that has made us think that farming is beneath us and that city life, eating out at restaurants, is better? Who's the one who's told us depending on others to cook your food instead of you knowing how to cook is more elite? Think about it. Think about it. This is why I keep telling people a farmer is richer than the man in the city and his penthouse. Don't let these vegans manipulate you emotionally into banning people from having chickens, from not wearing fur, from fishing, okay? Don't let them take the moral high ground and brainwash you into thinking you're bad because you buy from a good rancher and drink raw milk. Beware of what they're doing, perceive what they are doing, and understand they have to have supplements. They have to have so many other things that are man-made to make up for what they haven't consumed. And that being vegan in the city is a privilege because you have access to certain organic ingredients. But you're not better than the farmer who's able to go out and eat one of his goats and feed his family some of the best soup, some of the best steaks that are, around. So think about what I've said. Don't be fooled into thinking that starving yourself by eating like a rabbit is posh, elite, and gonna save the planet. There are viable solutions to pollution and other issues and sustainable ranching than just allowing animals to go extinct and relying on a factory to pump out highly processed fake mock meats. Because if a supply chain crisis happens, if a food shortage happens, you won't have that fake food in the shelves, and if riots break out, all that fake food will be stolen. That's why the rancher in the mountains, who has a secured perimeter, and children who understand how to harvest a chicken, and so on and so forth, have a better chance of survival during economic strife than those in food deserts and those who are purposely being starved into eating things that are man-made. Allah has given us wonderful meat of all kinds of animals and has given us the ability to grow our food and share it. But it's us who has become lazy and rejected rural farming living for the city life, which is perpetuating the power of the vegans to brainwash us into thinking that their philosophy even makes sense. So that's some of my points. Let me know what you think.